Hi, Scott Orlin with CINEMA-Magazin in London with the man, the myth, the legend, Tim Burton. This time for the movie Mrs. Peregrine's Peculiar Home for Children.
Yeah, say that 3 times.
Once was difficult enough for me. But I want to ask you, Tim, I mean, this is based on a book, but it's an unconventional book in its structure. What was it specifically that kind of intrigued you that you want to invest your time and energy?
Well, I mean, like I said, the first time I ever opened up a book and liked it before I even read it, you know, because the photographs were the first things that struck me, because I love old photographs and the way they sort of tell you a story but still have a sense of mystery and, you know, your own kind of slightly creepy, slightly emotional, funny, sad. You can get a lot from just looking at an old photograph. So I immediately was taken with that. And then when I read the book and the themes of, you know, being labeled as a peculiar child, peculiar children, you know, the theme of being, you know, a teenager and feeling like you don't fit into your world, and, you know, maybe you're seeing things that aren't there, and maybe you're crazy. I mean, those are feelings I recall very specifically, especially in your teenage years. So, and the other aspect of it I loved was that these people that are deemed as peculiar, you know, they're not really like superpowers. They're not like superheroes. They're basically just like real kids. And I just like that dynamic, you know, with all the superhero movies out. It just felt like it was a different way of exploring, you know, people that are deemed as different or peculiar. Because at the heart of it, they're basically just real kids.
But let me ask you about that word peculiar, because if you kind of take a step back, each one of us in our own unique way has a peculiarity, has something different about us. But why do we have a negative connotation to that?
I know, because if somebody said that to me, my immediately would be like, well, they're not horrible, that's not bad, it's not, you know, that most peculiar people I've met are usually pretty shy, quiet, sensitive, you know, and have a creative streak in them, however it's used. It doesn't need to be used in a big way, it just needs to be used in a personal way. And so I always felt very at home with those type of people and connected to them.
And I want to talk, you know, kind of breaking down an aspect of the movie without giving too much away. A particular day repeats itself. And looking back on your life, has there been a day that you wouldn't mind having repeated?
No. Maybe that my kids were born, I don't know, that's always but even that was kind of horrific. You know, I mean, that's the thing, there's no day that's ever perfect, you know, so it's always mixed up with good and bad. You know, even this day, you know, the bomb almost dropped, monster attacks, you know, I mean, there are things that happen in a day. I mean, this was more of a device as sort of as a protective bubble. I mean, I like the idea of, you know, peculiar people sort of living in a world where they're sort of accepted on their own terms by, you know, with their peers.
And, you know, we live in a world of special effects. I mean, every movie in some aspect kind of taps into something with computer graphics. And yet you talk to a lot of filmmakers and they want to make it as real as possible on set. Where do you fall on the spectrum when you make a movie like this?
Well, it's different from each one. But this one in particular, we tried to use as much real stuff, live stuff, because especially with a lot of the kids that never worked before, you know, so it was important to like find a real house so that they felt like they could, you know, understand where they were living. You know, even with the special effects, you know, because all the kids wanted to do their own stunts. So, you know, they wanted to float, they wanted to fly, they wanted to lift, they wanted to jump in the water, you know, so that's the thing that they were most interested in. So we tried to accommodate that as much as we could, just because that's, you know, it's a more human movie and wanted to rely on that aspect of it a bit more. That's where we're using more locations, more sets, more physical effects, you know, just it seemed to help the overall, you know, process of making this one.
And again, in this movie, Samuel Jackson kind of epitomizes the evilness in our life, that we have to be careful about that there are these people that want to take something from us. And I know that's not exactly the metaphor in your movie that you're trying to be structured, but how important is it in a fable like this that there is good and evil, that there is something we have to fear?
When I read this, I felt it was like a weird children's story. It's the way it sort of mirrors the way that Abe, the grandfather, is telling these strange stories to Jake as a young boy. It's like, you know, it reminds me of stories like horror stories for children. You know, it's like, and then the monster came in and ate the children's eyeballs. You know, it's like, it sounds creepy, but it also makes me laugh. You know, it's like one of those kind of bedtime stories for kids.
Well, Tim Burton, thank you so much for giving us another bedtime story in the movies. Thanks. And this is Scott Orlin. Till next time.
Thanks.